Turning to Mexico, where in under 2 hours, polls will open for an election that's almost certain to see the country elect its first female president. The two frontrunners are Claudia Sheinbaum, protege of outgoing left-wing leader Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, and Xochitl Galvez, a center-right senator. Now, the vote comes after a particularly bloody campaign that saw over 24 local candidates assassinated. Due to the violence, voting was suspended in 2 southern municipalities, and thousands of troops are being deployed nationwide to protect voters from drug cartels. Well, for more on Mexico's election, we can bring in William Booth, a lecturer in Latin American history at the University College London. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start perhaps with the more positive aspect of this vote. Mexico is looking set to elect its first female president. Just how symbolic is that for the country?
Very much so, and it goes just beyond that simple fact that it's actually quite a watershed election in a number of ways. I mean, almost certainly we are going to have Mexico's first Jewish president, first female president, certainly, and it's also Mexico's biggest ever exercise in democracy. Various reasons for that. There's lots of elections happening all at once, but they've also expanded the ways that people can vote, including overseas electronic voting. So in a number of ways, this is an absolutely enormous exercise in democracy.
And this has also been a particularly violent campaign. Can you explain why it's so difficult for the government to tackle organized crime?
Well, if I could do that, I'd be a very rich man. It's an incredibly deep-seated problem in Mexico, and it goes back a long time. This is not something that is specific to the AMLO government. Certainly, the big spike, the big sea change that came in terms of domestic violence within Mexico, and particularly intra-cartel violence, was when Felipe Calderon declared war on the cartels, or at least on some of them, in 2008, 2009. And ever since then, what we've really seen is a state of sometimes low-level, sometimes extremely high-level civil war, effectively, in parts of the country between criminal organizations. Now, sometimes that has spilled over into violence against aspects of the state. Sometimes it's included aspects of the state, including famously a shootout between 2 different parts of the police at Mexico City Airport. And of course, at various points, it has deeply affected the civilians, people who don't have anything to do with either the state or the cartels. And those are the people who are the primary victims of this long-running violence.
And in addition to the violence, are there other ways in which the cartels exercise their influence on Mexico's politics?
I mean, certainly there's a huge amount of corruption. There is vote buying that is being organized by cartels, and that is, again, non-partisan. You know, this is across the political spectrum. It just depends on which candidates in which regions the powerful actors want to see. In some places, those powerful actors are the state. In others, they are political parties. And in many places, they are cartels. And there's a fairly simple power dynamic going on here, and one way to get people to vote is to promise them something or to threaten them with something, and that's not something that's unique to Mexico, but it's certainly something that we can see very sharply in Mexico since what people call democratization of 2000, but obviously it's an imperfect democratization.
And there are 2 leading candidates in this race, both of them women. Can you walk us through their biggest policy differences?
Well, the main thing to say about Claudia Sheinbaum's policies, at least that she's announced so far, is that she is a continuity candidate in lots of ways for AMLO, and so she's been concentrating on keeping going with the incremental gains for the less well-off of Mexico. So what we have seen certainly over the last 6 years is an increase in minimum wage, a reduction in inequality, and the introduction of a meaningful pension in Mexico. And those things are popular with a large part of the population. They spill over from simple economic rewards as well into a broader idea of giving people dignity who have historically been denied it, whether that is poorer people, rural people, some indigenous communities. There's been controversies as well, of course, and those will be attached to the new project, and it remains to be seen what she will do in terms of things like hydrocarbons and so on. But the basic idea, I think, that Claudia has projected in this campaign is broadly speaking, continuity. Now, Xochitl Galvez has been trying to portray herself as a candidate of change, and she personally represents, potentially a quite exciting personal story, having come from a very humble background and succeeded in business. But she is backed by the PAN and the PRI, among other parties, both of which are very discredited parties associated with previous governments of corruption, of violence, and association with drug cartels. So she can't really claim to be a candidate of change when the party structure behind her represents decades of authoritarianism, corruption, and immiseration of the less well-off.
All right, we'll be keeping a keen eye on who voters decide to elect. Thank you so much for breaking that all down for us. Again, that's William Booth, a lecturer in Latin American history at the University College London.
Thank you.